So you said that you went down to Virginia?
I worked, I lived Everett, right outside of Boston, all my life. Oh God, when I was in my 20s, I moved down to Virginia in 1990.
Okay.
I worked for the CIA for 23 years.
Whoa.
So I spent uh, I spent 23 years in Virginia, but out of the years, I spent three in Okinawa, Japan, three in Seoul, South Korea, and then 4 months in this country, 3 months in this country. Retired in 2013, moved to Florida for 4 long years, and then in 2017 I returned back to New Hampshire.
Wow. That is so awesome.
I know. Thank you. I mean, I was really fortunate in those 23 years with the agency. I got to travel so much, see so many things, both on a personal and a business level. Um, a lot of that stuff has made its way into my books.
Cool. That's that's a lot of different things to pull from. Certainly, you must have a lot of
Yes.
ideas and well, just a lot of experiences to.
A lot of experience, a lot of cultures. I've got to meet, spend time with. When you go and visit a country for 3 or 4 days, you don't really experience it. But when you live somewhere for 7 weeks,
Yeah.
you get to know the people. You get to know what it's like. You get to know what it's. It's not those blurbs you see in the news. What the people are really like. And
Yeah.
almost every country I've been to, I loved.
That's awesome. A lot of did you sort of do a lot of Southeast Asia, or was that?
Most of what I did was, well, let's see. When I was in college, I took like a 20 country, 60-day tour of Western and Eastern Europe.
Wow.
When I was with the agency, I did the 6 years I was in Asia, I traveled all over the place. My wife at the time and I, we went to Australia, we went to Vietnam, Hong Kong. Later on, a friend of mine was stationed in China. He was a World War II buff like me.
Hmm.
So I went to World War.
Uh oh. Oh, we've got a
Oh,
lag. Oh, no, it's good. It's good now.
we went to Unit 731, which was the Japanese biological warfare unit. And, it's like fascinating because, they don't care. Today the lab where they did all the administrative work is now an elementary school.
What?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Interesting
weird. It's
choice.
fascinating. But I got to see a lot, and then I spent let's see, I spent about 3 4 years of my career in the Middle East. Got to see some got to spend some time in Basra during the occupation, which was very eye opening and unique. And then I spent most of the last of my career doing North Korea.
Okay.
Never got to North Korea, but just love that country. It's so bizarre.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a good word for it.
Yeah.
Well, I will do our official introduction,
All right.
which is good evening. I am Katherine Silva, Cat for short, and welcome to Winter Views Series 1, Episode 11. This is our series finale of Series 1, and we have the lovely Scott Baker with us this evening to discuss Apocalyptic Horror. How are you doing, Scott?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. Thank you for asking, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm really happy to be here.
We are very excited to have you here as well. A whole month talking about apocalyptic fiction is pretty wonderful. That's just kind of how it shook out, which was nice. For those in the chat who might not be familiar with your work, would you mind telling them a little bit about you?
um, I'm a former CIA officer. Retired in 2013, and at that point, I started writing full time. And I've got a wide range of books. You can see a lot of them behind me. I've got quite a few zombie novels and zombie themed novellas, but I've also got vampires, big bugs, one. I've got one book that is environmental post-apocalypse. Operation Majestic, which you can see behind me, is a time travel science fiction. A friend of mine described it as Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Back to the Future with Nazis. A couple of paranormal books. So I run the gambit of it. I'm not afraid to try anything.
It's pretty awesome that you're very well-rounded in the genre.
I just don't want to I don't want to be tagged as just one author, and it gets boring if you write nothing but zombies. I love zombies, don't get me wrong. It's my bread and butter. I love them. But, after a while, it's like, okay, how many unique ways can you kill a zombie that hasn't already been done by another writer or on The Walking Dead?
That's true. I'm sure people are trying to invent even more ways. I need to refer to my script because without it I am lost.
I used to get so mad when I was writing my first zombie series. I'd come out with these great ideas, I'd put them in the novel, and then like Sunday I'd watch The Walking Dead and they'd kill the zombie the same way I came up with. So I had to go back and rewrite that whole chapter.
Yeah, The Walking Dead has become quite the phenomenon in zombie horror, but it's a really well done TV show and certainly graphic novel series as well. Certainly a lot to unpack.
I never completed the graphic novel series. Well, I'm ashamed I didn't, and I stopped watching after Rick died because my problem with it, and I found this problem in other books and movies, is there were so many characters you lost track of the storyline. My favorite was Carol. I loved Carol. Yeah. And yet they threw in so many other characters that it would go 3 or 4 episodes before you'd finally see Carol. It's like, no. Carol saved them from Terminus. Carol coined the phrase, look at the flowers. She should be the star, not some other guy.
Yeah, she is a pretty phenomenal character in the TV series, and the actress who plays her, who I cannot think of her name presently, she is also just amazing.
Yeah, I met her once. She's a lovely woman.
That's cool.
I met her at a convention. I've had the fortune of, when I go to conventions as a writer, I get to sneak in and I get to go in early before the doors open, so I get to walk around and, meet some of these people and sit down and chat with them for a few minutes, give them a free copy of the book. They give me a free autograph. She's a lovely, lovely woman. Very, very low key, very pleasant, very sweet. Unlike her character, but no, her was my favorite. I love the way they took her from the battered, abused, mousy housewife to being the biggest kick-ass in Rick's team.
Yeah, I agree. And
my favorite line of all the series was when she's got the little boy cornered when he catches her stealing the weapons.
Oh, yeah.
And she does the whole thing. I'll tie you up into a tree, and nobody in the forest will hear you, except the zombies, and they'll come and eat you, and nobody will ever know. Or I could bake you cookies. It was wow.
The horrible thing about that was that sentence, that threat, was kind of the undoing of that kid later. That was probably the reason why that kid didn't make it, which is really sad. It was really badass of her, but it was also just consequences. As I mentioned before, tonight's subject is apocalyptic horror. We've had previous discussions on the program of the same topic with authors Doug Rinaldi, Nick A. Zano III, and Elaine Pascal last week. I just want to remind the chat, if you do want to see those interviews, if you missed them, you can catch them over at the YouTube channel. which I will be posting in the comments after we're finished with our interview. So I want to get started on the subject, even though we've sort of already started on the subject. And I'll ask, what was your first inspiration to want to write apocalyptic horror?
I've always enjoyed zombie movies. As a kid, I loved zombie movies. Brian Keene's The Rising, when it came out in the 1990s, hooked me back into horror genre. And I just loved reading anything zombies back then. I always wanted to write my own zombie novel. The reason it took me over 10 years was because I couldn't come up with a plot that was different. You know, I didn't want to do the same thing. Zombies come to life. Zombies, eat people. Guy goes and gets his wife or his girlfriend or his children. Bang, bang, shoots him in the head, escapes the scene. Everybody does that. It actually took me quite a while. I actually had to write my vampire series first before I came up with the plot. And my first zombie, I thought it was unique at the time because it had never been done, was vampires and humans in a zombie apocalypse. And I'd come up with the idea that the vampires had created the zombie virus, figuring if zombies are eating humans, humans are not hunting down vampires, making the miscalculation that zombies eat flesh, doesn't matter whether it's living or undead. So both groups got wiped out, and there was this one tiny group of vampires and humans living on the coast of Maine, in Kittery, and they had gotten to the point where they were barely cooperating and tolerating when, of course, government scientist shows up and says, "Hey, I got the antidote for all this. We can cure this overnight." But it's 500 miles away in an underground bunker in Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
So needless to say, it's a complete Charlie Foxtrot getting down there. But I ran the series. I got some good reviews. People liked it. It was different. It was unique. People loved zombie vampires. That was just over the top. And then I just did some different apocalyptic fiction. Played around with other concepts, and right now I'm working on the Nurse Alyssa series, which is another zombie apocalyptic horror book series. So.
How many apocalypse books would you say that you have written?
The Rotted World trilogy, 3 books. Frozen World, which is it's pure. It's more scientific. There's no zombies. It's more like a Snowpiercer type thing.
Gotcha.
It's 2 groups of humans trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic environment where the world went completely cold. I'm currently working on the Nurse Alyssa series. Book 8's coming out April 15th. The Chronicles of Paul, which is a spin-off series. And then the other one I have is a young adult Shattered World series. The funny story about that is when I married my current wife in 2013, I sat down one day and we were sitting at the table and I looked over at my stepdaughter and I thought, she's 10. She can't read anything I've written. It's so bad. So I developed, what I did with the whole concept is it's Jason McCreary, 16-year-old kid. His mother conducted a scientific experiment that blew open portals between hell and earth. And all the demons from hell are flowing into earth and wiping it out. So he gathers up a band of adventurers and they go around the world trying to close the portals and save earth.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Thank you. It was great because, when you do vampires, when you do zombies, there's certain tropes you have to follow. I had demons from hell. I could do whatever I want. I could make up anything and nobody would care.
Did you ever find that, doing any kind of, placing hell in your book, sort of giving it that religious tone, did that ever spark any kind of issue with people? Nobody got, because I
I sort of did hell from Satan's perspective.
Gotcha.
You know, I didn't have a lot of characters in my books preaching Christianity or Islam or any other religion. It was, it was like, it dawned on them in one book, wait a minute, if there's a hell, then there's got to be a heaven. You know, and there's questioning, well, like one character was like, I never believed in religion until the gates of hell opened up. Mm-hmm. You know, now I do. But no, the hell was just a concept I came up with myself. Okay. My version of hell is completely different. It's sort of like mixing religion with popular culture, and if I go there, and I probably will, what I hope it's like.
In creating your apocalyptic worlds, what's your technique for creating? Well, a lot of your fiction sounds pretty wild, pretty exciting. Of course, my note is, what's your technique for creating a believable catastrophe? But that might not necessarily be the right question to ask. I guess, do you prefer to write a sort of more believable catastrophe, or do you like to make it more fun and ridiculous?
I try to do both. I mean, I'm the type of person, I had the worst time writing my time travel book because I tried to keep to the tropes of time travel. Not the tropes, but the science of time travel. With Frozen World, I came up with what I thought was a plausible explanation how the Earth got plunged into its apocalyptic state. And then from there, I just set up the world. That's got one of the most evil villains in it himself. This guy just doesn't care. He's just a maniacal sociopath that will destroy everyone as long as it meets his interests. Wow. The zombies are usually, I don't anymore try to come up with a reason for the zombie apocalypse, because most of the readers I've talked to, they don't care. Mm-hmm. They don't want to know the science about who created it and how it got spread. They just want to know that the zombies are out there eating people.
Yep.
And I get a lot of feedback because I like to describe the zombies. Like a cheerleader with half her face and an arm missing. Attacked the listen. People love that stuff. They like to see the zombie. They like to picture it in their mind. Mm-hmm. They don't really care so much about how they got there.
Yeah.
And with the Shattered World series, plausible on that if you just sort of suspend your imagination. Mm-hmm. It probably really couldn't happen, but I try to give a plausible explanation how the portals were blown open, and I try a plausible explanation for how they're closed.
Yeah.
But it's a novel. It's fiction. It's I don't go with the old, all of a sudden in the 5th book you find out that the heroine is the chosen one who will close everything through her mystical powers. I set everything up so you know how to close it. It's just not easy to close that for.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
There is a comment in here from Andreas, who's just saying, Jay Bauer just published a trilogy over the last 4 months with a vampire and a zombie apocalypse called Dead Blood. I had not heard of that, but
I will have to check that out. Yeah, because when I wrote my book, the only other book about zombies, vampires, and humans was red blood on white thorns. I got something like that, and it was a very uniquely written. It was the world had gone to apocalyptic. Vampires and zombies had taken over, and they were battling each other for the last few humans left. Which was brilliant concept. I mean, it's not bad enough you're being chased down by zombies. Now you're being chased down by zombies and vampires. But thanks, I'll have to check out Jay's book.
Yeah. I'll have to put it down as well. Of course, after I read your many books.
Okay.
So, I guess my next question, aside from zombie horror, what are your favorite subgenres in apocalyptic horror?
I don't know if you would call it apocalyptic horror.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you could, because an apocalypse is horrible to begin with. I love the natural disaster ones.
Okay.
Love the movie 2012. That is my guilty pleasure. I mean, that movie sucks on every level. It is so unbelievable, so off the wall. But I love it when Woody Harrelson and John Cusack are watching Yellowstone blow up. You know, I like rewind that. My wife sits in bed like rolling her eyes. The Book of Eli. I love the Book of Eli.
It's a good one.
My favorite post-apocalypse book and movie, and I find it horrifying because it's realistic, is The Road. McCarthy's The Road.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way it really would be. And you know, and I also love The Postman, the movie. Well, sorry, but and Mad Max, The Road Warrior.
Yeah, nice.
I mean,
nice.
I like those type. You know, they except for The Road and the Book of Eli, which are much more serious. All the others are just fun.
Yeah.
Other than that, apocalyptic horror. I mean, I'm huge into like pandemic horror.
Okay.
And this was way before COVID. Well, one of the things I worked on, I did weapons of mass destruction for 5 years for the agency. And I worked biological weapons.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, I knew, okay, I know what can be launched against us. That's why, like, you know, I was laughing through most of COVID. You know, we're all falling apart at the seams. It's like, okay, guys, we're playing this video game on beginner level. There's stuff out there that would wipe everybody off the planet no matter what we did. But,
Did you either read or see World War Z by...
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. I love them both, but they're completely different.
Yes, they are.
The book is brilliant. An oral history of the zombie apocalypse. One of the most brilliant ideas ever read. And what I loved about the book was every point of view had a different tone to it. You know, like I'm still launched, it's still stuck in my head, the battle between the Chinese navies and the zombie underwater with the submarine. And the South Korean intelligence officer looking over the DMZ into North Korea. You know, when the North brought all their people into the bunker and then they never came out. And just, I've always wanted to write the novel, what happened in those underground bunkers to the North Koreans.
I mean, bunker horror is definitely a thing. Could certainly be a cool book to write.
Yeah, but I'd be stepping on Max's toes. I'd have to ask him permission.
Well, I mean...
I did my own bunker horror with Frozen World, so...
Yeah. The thing is, like, if you're being super specific, and you're doing it in the exact same instance as, then yes, definitely, but you could adapt it to fit.
Well, I do have a bunker horror scene in Rada World, at the very end of it.
Okay.
Which I think is very unique.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'm intrigued.
Okay.
And I guess, let's see. So, when we're talking disaster fiction, are some of your favorites more just like the kind of natural degradation of nature, or are you thinking like volcano, like
I like the volcano, a slow degradation like global warming, pollution takes too much, to my way of thinking, takes too much time. You know, you can prepare for it.
Yep.
Yellowstone exploding tomorrow morning. Unless you're a prepper, unless you're ready for this stuff, you're screwed.
Yeah.
And that to me is, and it's also got a global impact to it. That's one of the, like a nuclear war, a pandemic, huge natural, like that's why I love 2012. The whole world went to crap in 36 hours. The Yellowstone volcano exploding. It's got a huge impact. It's not going to be something you can just wait out for 3 or 4 days and it passes. It's going to change everything.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like about that apocalyptic horror is, slasher movies I love. I love the big bug movies. I love ghost stories, but it's all a local incident. It happens in the cabin in the woods. It happens at some, redneck farmhouse. It happens at a haunted house in New York. And then when it's done, you walk out and everything in the streets are normal.
Yep.
Not with apocalyptic horror. You fight your huge battle, you walk out, and the rest of the world's gone to shit too.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, that's fair. There's nowhere safe, really.
No. And I've had debates with friends on many pages. Would you go to an underground bunker? A lot of them say, "Oh, I'd love it there. It's safe." It's like, no, you're trapped. You can't get out of there now. Everything's above you. All the zombies are above you. If you lose the power, where are you going to go?
That actually reminds me, and it's a film I have not seen, but would like to, is the follow-up to Cloverfield, which is...
Yes, the one with Goodman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is definitely bunker horror.
It is.
It's
very good, and it's very well done, because Goodman plays his role fantastically. And you're not 100% sure throughout the movie, is he really a tough good guy, or is he a psychopathic bad guy?
Yeah. Yep. And that's the thing is, the entire world going to hell is could make anyone seem frantic and panicked and crazy. So, yeah, it's just hard to sort of get a read on anyone.
And I'm big into the world's gone to hell. The bad guys are going to pop up all over the place. Sure. That's one of the reasons why I love The Postman so much. Is I think Will Patton's character is just this. You know what I'm getting at? Narcissistic asshole who's trying to be the big guy. And what I love is Kevin Costner doesn't want any part of this. He just wants to walk around, tell stories, get some food, and he winds up becoming the savior of the United States.
Yeah.
That's what I love about those. How do you deal? What type of guys come to power? The governor on The Walking Dead, I think, was brilliant. There was a guy that was partly good, partly bad, and then when Michonne killed his daughter, you saw that snap in his eyes. You saw him go over the deep end. Negan. Negan was another one. There's good to this guy. There's bad to this guy. I hate it when they have the bad guy character who, like in Book of Eli, who's just purely narcissistic, evil, nothing good about him.
Yeah, well,
I play a lot with that in some of my books.
It's not believable having a character that's just very dead set on being evil. There's justification for evil actions. There's always a character that thinks that they're doing the right thing by what they're doing, even though it is horrendous. But their morality is so screwed up that they can't see it. When you are crafting your evil characters for your books, I guess how do you balance their light and their dark? ness.
It's difficult. I don't want to copy the governor. I don't want to copy the classic villains, Governor Negan, the guy from Waterworld.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember his name. The worst, the most narcissistic, evil villain is the one from Frozen World, and I can't remember his name right now, which is embarrassing to me. He is just purely. He's like one of the worst guys in the prison who now is running this facility, and he doesn't care. He wants power. The argument with the others around him. A little bit like I'm a World War II buff. The argument, okay, Hitler was off the wall, no questions asked. What do the others around him do? Do we stop this lunatic? Probably wind up getting killed. Should we step in? We're already compliant. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
I try to throw some of that aspect into that book.
Okay.
But with the Nurse Alyssa series, I've got a bad guy now, Slade, he runs more along the Governor or the Negan lines. There's good to him. He's done some really good things. There's a huge narcissistic streak. But what I try to play up mostly is those around him. The people that got caught up. One day you're walking down the street escaping zombies, and the next thing you know, you're picked up by a group of scavengers. Do you want to go to the rape room, or do you want to become a scavenger and go out and round up other people to go to the rape room? So.
Yeah. I was going to say something, and then it totally flew out of my brain. Love when that happens. So we've discussed a number of different films, books. Are there any other particular ones that you would mention to the people in the chat, or the people who are watching the video, that have been maybe an inspiration to you, or that you think would be a really good option for people to experience?
Besides my books, of course.
Besides yours, of course, yeah.
I got to admit, one post-apocalyptic, it was the video game series, Fallout.
Yeah.
I played that game ad nauseum when I was doing the Shattered World series.
Nice.
Because, it was the same type of environment. It was a hellish landscape, and I liked that. It was just fun. You had different characters, different monsters, and I think it also helped that, two of the games, one took place in Washington, D.C.
Yep.
So I'm like running around a place I knew very well. The other one took place in Boston, which I knew. But other post-apocalyptic horror that I haven't mentioned, I mean, it's old, it's outdated, but I think it's still very effective, is, I think it was 1984 or 5, The Day After.
Okay.
Which was about a nuclear war and the aftermath, and Americans trying to survive.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not...
Yeah, there was another one. God, there's another one made in Russia around the same time. I wish I could remember the name of it. It is it's the second most depressing post-apocalyptic movie I've seen since The Road.
Wow.
Because it's just like it has people walking through the streets of Moscow, and there's just dead, decaying bodies. Because who's going to move them?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think any other ones that come to mind. Pandemic, apocalyptic horror, of course, is I think it's Pandemic, the one with Gwyneth Paltrow.
I haven't seen it, but I think you are right. I think that's the name of it.
That one is, and it is, when you watch it now, it's like, it's got a really sad irony to it.
Yeah.
How that pandemic originates. But it's it is a good, it's classic, and it shows what it's like, government in action,
Mm-hmm.
you know, how people handle things, you know, just the whole 9 yards. It's very, very realistic, but very depressing.
Okay. Well, I am so happy that you mentioned Fallout, because you are the only other writer who has mentioned video games. I usually have to bring them up during this section. So I'm glad that you are a gamer of
I am not as much as I used to be, but
okay. One of my favorites to bring up during this segment has been The Last of Us.
yeah,
Because that is just an amazing, well done story, and soon will be a TV series for more people to experience. And then one that I brought up a couple weeks ago, which is not as well known, but it's a fantastic game, is Lisa the Painful, which is it's an RPG. It's actually like a side-scrolling RPG, and it's about the world. All the women in the world die, and it's just men left. And your main character,
that's horrifying.
yeah, and your main character is Brad, who is a karate instructor, and he finds an abandoned baby girl out in the world, and decides to bring her back home to his buddies and take care of her. And she grows up to, I don't actually know what age, maybe like preteen, like 12 or 13 or something like that. And one day some guys break into the house, and she's gone while Brad is out, and his mission through the game, your mission, is to find out what happened to Buddy, who's the girl. But it's a hilarious and depressing game at the same time. It really balances humor and sadness very
What's the name
well.
of this one?
It's called Lisa the Painful.
Lisa the Painful. I might have to check that out. See, I'm the type of person, I get to the point, I am tired of reading. I am tired of writing. I just can't. I'm tired of Netflix.
Yep.
So I throw a video game in, and for a week, my family won't see me.
Yep.
Until I reach that one boss fight that, if I don't beat it in 24 hours, I say, F it.
Yeah.
Close the game down, go back to writing and reading, and, And then it's like 6 months later, I go back to the game, and it was like, I don't even remember what I did. I have to start all over.
Yeah. I guess I play like that too. I like to get inspiration from every kind of medium that I can, and video games offer a really fun way to gather inspiration. But I will lose myself playing a game for a while if I get into it, which is why I try not to play as often as I can. It is
another fantastic post-apocalyptic horror video game series is Metro.
Yeah, I haven't played any Metro, but I definitely know it.
The new one that came out, I can't remember the name of it, is really good.
Okay.
Because it's the same mixture of like Fallout. Good humans, bad humans, monsters.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sure what you're getting yourself into. You can do 1,001 side quests.
Yep. Yeah, the side quests always make a game for me.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm usually up till 4 in the morning. Finish one side quest. Would you like to do another? It's only midnight. Sure.
Yeah. That's not an apocalyptic game, but I've been playing Skyrim for longer than I should be, and that has just it goes on and on.
Yeah. I've also enjoyed Dead Island.
Yep. That's an excellent one.
I gave up on that one when I was trying to take the native leader from the tribal leader to safety, and he keeps on running off. It's like, stay with me, and then it's like, he runs off and gets killed, so I got to go back and start that whole scene over again. I gave up the 12th time. It was like, the hell with it.
Gosh.
And I loved the one Dead Rising. But again, I stopped that one because it was the same thing. I'm leading the kids to the mall to safety, and the kids aren't listening to me. They're running in there, look, sneakers!
I mean, like real kids, kind of.
Yeah, but if they die, then you lose the mission.
Yes,
it's like, fine, let them get eaten. I'm going to go on.
That's the issue with...
I'm going to turn this umbrella into some massive weapon and then run my way through the mall.
That's the issue with side quests that are like, you're supposed to keep the person alive. Which I'm in the middle of playing The Long Dark, which could be another apocalyptic game to consider, because it takes place in like Alaska, and the northern lights are like causing electromagnetic issues throughout the region. So you're basically playing as a pilot who's crashed in a plane, and you're trying to find your ex-wife who was a doctor who also crashed in the plane. And there's a part of the story where you find another crashed plane and a bunch of survivors, dead people, and there's one survivor, and you have to get her back to the wolf-infested church. And I stopped playing because the wolves are ridiculous, and just, you can't get anywhere without them killing you. So I'll go back to it later after I'm not annoyed with it.
I don't know if this would fall in the category of post-apocalyptic horror. I mean, I guess you could, because it's like another realm. Is the Silent Hill 1 and 2.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you're stuck there. It's not like you just can leave town. So because of that, I consider it a post-apocalypse. That one just freaked the hell out of me.
Silent Hill is one of those, like, I would call it more psychological horror, because it is definitely, well, maybe not the first one as much, but definitely 2 and after are, happening inside this guy's or girl's sort of fractured mind. God, maybe not 3 either, come to think of it. The running theme is that they, the monsters and scenes are metaphors for these people's broken psyches, but no, they're really fantastic games, and that other world that happens, that sort of things turn rusty and get covered in the gross, like, fleshy bits. That's pretty terrifying. And definitely seems very post-apocalyptic. So and
those nurses are just freak.
The nurses, Pyramid Head or Red Pyramid, whatever. They're absolutely horrifying. Definitely noteworthy in the horror genre. I do have follow-up questions for our talk, because we are beginning to close in on the end here. The first question, which is the most fun, is your go-to weapon in the zombie apocalypse, or in just the apocalypse in general. What would that be?
My AK-47 with a 150 round drum.
Wow. Not messing around.
I figure if whatever's coming after me can't be stopped by that. Have it.
Okay.
I'm yours.
And what would your take be on the, I know some people have said the whole, like, they don't want to go with a gun because then you do have limited ammunition, or they don't want to make too much noise.
A machete, or, well, depending on what it is. I mean, if it was a apocalyptic situation where the only thing I had to worry about was animals or humans, I would probably go for a knife.
Okay.
If it was a zombie situation, I would go for a machete, and I have in my garage a thick steel 3-foot long crowbar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which that should take care of anything. That should take care of anything pretty big if you hit it hard enough.
Yep.
And the ammunition is also a really good one. I mean, so many people own AK-47s. Finding the ammunition wouldn't be difficult. I think my backup weapon would be a shotgun.
Ah, nice. Nice.
Because you can find those rounds everywhere, and it's one of those things, if you're being attacked by something either large or a swarm of it,
mm-hmm.
It's a better melee weapon than an AK-47.
Gotcha.
I always joke, with my wife, because my wife watches some of the horror. It's, yes, if you're attacked by a zombie bear, a zombie elephant,
mm-hmm.
that's a noble. What if you got attacked by zombie chipmunks? What a way to go.
That's a story to write right there.
I mean, that would just be so embarrassing. Yeah.
I mean, pretty awesome to consider.
Yeah.
You don't see chipmunks running around in packs generally, but
no.
But just one really angry, like, zombie chipmunk. that
it's
that
kind
needs
of hard
to be
to
done.
shoot them. They're little, they're tiny, and
They
they're
are.
fast.
They are. I actually had a really horrible experience of watching a rat kill a chipmunk from my from here, actually. And so now I'm just thinking, like, zombie chipmunk would not be able to withstand a zombie rat. Zombie rat would be absolutely terrifying, and I would give up.
I've thought of that, working that in, but then if like a pile of zombie rats, a whole pack of them, that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
But then I do the species jump, and at that point, the whole game changes.
There is a question that just popped up in the chat from Andreas. He's asking, how did The Collector happen, and what was writing with 5 other writers like?
If you've read The Collector, I hope you read The Collector. If you did, let me know what you think. It was just one of the authors got together one night. One of the authors wrote a bunch of us who he knew that were not only good writers, but were acceptable to editing, and just came up with this story about the prequel to Halloween. This takes place in, I think, 1958, around Halloween, Haddonfield, Illinois, and the Collector, this impish character, comes in to collect evil souls and bring them back to Satan. And the whole concept of the book was come up with ways, because they send out bad vibes pretty much throughout the city, and trying to entice people to commit horrifying crimes so their souls would be condemned to hell for eternity. And he'd collect them and make all the money. And it was just, what was fun about it was every one of us tried to outdo the next person. It's like, okay, like I don't want to give it away, but one of my scenes was there's a bad cop in town, And what he liked to do was he liked to torture like some of the asshole punk kids rather than just let them go. And then at the local slaughterhouse, there was a vat of dead where they threw away bones and pieces of cow that they didn't want, and it was just cesspool of detritus and maggots. He'd like tie their hands together and throw them into the pool and watch them drown. Yeah. And then like somebody thought, well, I think I can outdo you on that one. And then the next person was like, well, I think I can make it even more gross. And we tried to outgross each other to the end of the book.
Wow.
So, yeah. It was a fun book to write.
Nice.
It was really fun coming up with the ideas. You know, how can we commit the most disgusting, cruel murders you can think of? And we had fun writing it, and then we gave it to a professional editor who edited the book, and you know we agreed to all the changes, and it came out.
Nice.
Yeah.
My second follow-up question is, if you were living in a community after the apocalypse had happened, what do you think your role would be in that community?
I would like to be the leader, and I say that because I was CIA for 23 years. Yeah. I don't trust people.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen decent people, guys, men and women I worked with, who when they moved up to management become complete assholes.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not going to be in charge, I want to be like either this person's second in command, the person's the voice in his or her ear.
Trusted counsel.
The trusted counsel, yeah. The chief of staff, you know, the one that says, well, you know, after the meeting, you're out of your effing mind.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. I would have to see, because using The Walking Dead as an example, okay, you're in the governor's group, you made out pretty good unless you pissed the governor off.
Yep.
You are in Negan's group, you're not doing too well. But even when you were in Alexandria, the leadership there wasn't that good. I mean, the woman who was running it first was not a good leader.
No, she was
and
not.
And then, I mean, you know, Rick got so out of control, Michonne had to knock him out one time.
Yep.
So, you know, would you prefer to have Rick or Shane running the group?
Yeah.
It would be hard to say. It would depend on who's leading the group. You know, I mean, like I said, I would like to be the leader of the group. And also, how badly am I tied there? Right now, I've got a aged mother-in-law living with me, my wife, and my 20-year-old daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That cuts my mobility down.
Yep.
Now, if it was just me, I might not even stay with a group. I might just go out and wander the wilderness on my own.
Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Well, if there's one thing that we've learned, it is that you do not want to go after Scott during an apocalypse. He will mow you down. He would be a wonderful friend to have during the apocalypse, though.
Thank you. Yes. Yes.
So that concludes our conversation for this evening, and I would like to thank you for coming out tonight and talking about your books and about your writing and your terrifying instances of what you would do in an apocalypse, unless it's against, chipmunks or rats, or fleas, as somebody said in the comment.
Most people have nightmares and wake up panting. I wake up from a nightmare and I'm like jotting down notes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the one thing about horror writing, is that your nightmares often give you inspiration where others they would completely terrify.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome thing, writing scary stuff for a living.
Yeah. I enjoy it. I love it. Second best job I've had.
So this is the end of our series 1 of Winter Views. I'd like to just take a moment and thank everybody that has been on the program for series 1. You've all been wonderful guests, and I've also enjoyed talking with all of you and getting to know you more. Something the chat may not know is that we're all members of the New England Horror Writers, which is a sort of private writing group, and it's a really broad group, and there are a lot of different members, and it's hard to get to know everyone, so this has been a lovely time for me. And and hopefully when we start series 2, which will be next winter, y'all are gonna have to wait. It's gonna be next January through March, with a whole new cast of characters. I'll get to meet even more. If you have not been featured and would like to be featured, send me a direct message, and maybe we can work something out. I also want to pitch that there is going to be a different series that I am running this summer, which is called The Trunk. And The Trunk is a humorous series of writers reading their worst trunk stories. And anyone that wants to be featured on that, including yourself if you would like to, may do so. It's really just meant to be fun and, you know, a little self-deprecating, but not, you know, not to the point of being awful. Just, you know, having fun with maybe that one story that you know, you think about and you cringe.
Yep. Mine would be, I'll tell you the story later. I actually wrote a story, Tentacle Sex, for an oceanographic anthology.
Some hentai.
And I was asked to write it, and then when I submitted it, they told me it was too gross and disgusting to be printed. It's like, okay, it's tentacle sex.
Wow.
What do you want?
It's interesting, you know, we've, in previous things we've talked about what this, what the closed captioning will bleep out, and it will not bleep out tentacle sex, but it will bleep out hentai. And it bleeped out something, it bleeped out porn earlier, which is pretty funny. So take that as you will, but anyway, thank you everybody in the chat for coming out. Had fun this evening.
Yes.
And we will do this again soon. And I hope you all have a nice evening.
Yes, and let me just, before we go, quickly pimp myself.
Oh, yes, definitely.
All the books behind me, plus more that didn't make it up there. Everything I've written is on Amazon, my Amazon Authors page. Scott M. Baker. Everything's there. If you're interested in the Nurse Alyssa series, wait a few days. I'm putting it on sale next week. And the best place to find me is my Facebook page, Scott Baker's Demon Hunters. That's where I talk about cover reveals, upcoming conventions, upcoming book release, everything under the sun. I talk about that. I do not talk politics. I do not talk religion. It doesn't matter. I still get banned from Facebook once every couple of months.
I will include those links in the YouTube video when I post it this weekend. I hope to have this video and Elaine's video up this weekend.
Okay.
So those of you who may have missed it will see it there.
And I will post it all over my media and direct it back to your YouTube page.
Cool. All right. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us this evening, and I hope
Thank
you
you
all
for having me. It was a pleasure.
all have a great evening.